Hi, this is Curtis Roynestead. I am here in Matawan, New Jersey, my hometown, at the Burroughs Mansion Museum. We're in the room that is informally known as the Freneau Room. This is actually a room that is currently being used to exhibit things relating to Philip Freneau. The project that I chose to do for the HIUS 512 class this semester is actually on Philip Freneau, but more specifically about why and how he kind of went to the revolutionary cause as the revolution started and even before the revolution started. So for those of you who don't know, Philip Freneau is known as the poet of the American Revolution. He was a very integral player in the revolution, and unfortunately, unless you're a poetry person, unless you're a major Revolutionary War historian, or if you're from Monmouth County, you may not have heard of this individual. It's kind of one of the reasons that I want to talk about this guy, and I chose this as a project. He's actually buried here in my town in Matawan, New Jersey. His home is still standing in our town. That's all integrated as part of my project where I've actually interviewed some of these people. But one of the reasons that I chose this particular project also is because this was such a major convergence of different patriot causes that seemed to happen right here in the Middle Colonies, not only New Jersey, but Monmouth County, and even specifically here in Matawan, which at that time was known as Middletown Point. Now, there's a lot of scholarship about Philip Freneau. Been a lot of authors that have actually written about him. I'm going to be using a lot of these as some of my source material, although some of them don't always disagree or agree. They seem to focus on different aspects and different facets of Freneau's life. So one of the most primary books that was written was actually 1967 by Jacob Axelrad. He was a really good author. He kind of gave a lot of details about Freneau's younger years, talked specifically about how he was very close friends, not just classmates, but roommates with James Madison. Also very much so how he got involved with the post-revolution period of where there was the whole Federalist, anti-Federalist thing, and Thomas Jefferson actually befriended Freneau and actually had him run the Gazette in 1791. So there's a lot of also more contemporary things that have been written. There's another book that came out in 2012 called The Hamiltonian Vision. It was written by William Nestor. Now the interesting thing is that this particular work talks about Freneau as being a revolutionary as a result of being a prisoner on the prison ship, the Scorpion. I don't agree. And the reason I don't agree with this particular aspect is because if you really look at the background of Freneau, especially in his younger years, you'll see it reveals itself that Freneau was actually way more of a revolutionary even before the revolution itself. This was an individual who was educated by the Tennant family, number one, which was the family of Presbyterians that really came out of the Log College in Nishoshini, Pennsylvania. William Tennant specifically was actually his teacher, and he was actually an interim the president at Princeton. Now, by 1768, Freneau goes into Princeton, where he meets his buddy, James Madison, who he called Ginny or Jemmy. So Jemmy Madison was his classmate. Now, I'd like to just walk you guys around real quick, only because I find a lot of this stuff really interesting on the display here. There's a lot of facets of Freneau's life that is covered or are covered in here. And I think a lot of this stuff is really kind of cool. And I do use all of these things as part of my presentation. I also have some interviews that I've done of some of the more experts in this field. So, and again, there's a lot of information about Freneau, which has been really the good thing about this particular project. Even though he may seem obscure in the mainstream, he's not when it comes to the Revolutionary War aspect. He is actually very well known.
Thanks for watching.